Today we will be discussing the relationship between power and leadership. Power and leadership are vital to an organization if it is to be successful. Our hypothesis question is, if it's true that power does not always lead to the greatest leadership, then why does leadership lead to power? To prove our hypothesis, we will be discussing how power does not always lead to strong leadership by taking a look at the Enron scandal case, and how great leadership leads to power through the analysis of Abraham Lincoln and his emergence into power through leadership during the Civil War.
This case is a real-world example of how power does not always lead to the greatest leadership. Enron Corporation was an American energy company based in Houston, Texas. It was founded in 1985, and over the years, Enron expanded its business plan to increase profitability. The company was named America's Most Innovative Company by Fortune magazine every year between 1996 and 2001. Enron's stock price reached a high in the mid-2000s. After it was revealed that the company had been engaging in accounting fraud, in fact had been hiding billions of dollars in debt via various accounting loopholes, the company's shareholders filed a $40 billion lawsuit, and Enron's stock price plunged to less than $1 per share by the end of November 2001. On December 2nd, 2001, Enron filed for bankruptcy. At this time, Enron's meteoric fall marked the largest corporate bankruptcy in U.S. history. Various researchers studied the company and reasons behind this downfall. The source of all these reasons can be traced to the unethical practices of the leadership. Examining the role of the top leaders in the debacle of Enron provided good insights into how these practices erode the culture of a company and the ways in which this can be avoided. The man in charge of Enron, Kenneth Lay, led many of his subordinates down this path of crime because they believed his power would lead to effective leadership, guiding them to success. All in all, Enron is one of the biggest failures in the world of business history of the U.S. In the end, many of Enron's executives were charged for insider trading, securities fraud, and conspiracy. While many accounting practices are said to be the reason for failure, these practices were driven by the top leaders and hence bad leadership, which is considered to be the reason for the organization's failure.
Scandal provided important examples of how the abuse of organizational power led to the downfall of a company, but further gives a look into how power does not always lead to effective leadership. Enron's leaders directed their followers towards the achievement of personal desired goals that did not benefit the company as a whole. Enron's leaders deceived their subordinates into committing accounting fraud and improper trade practices, which led to the downfall of the company as a whole. Enron's leaders met the definition of what a leader should do. They were effective in achieving their goals, but they did not do so ethically and did so at the expense of their company and their many employees.
Into our second case, which is a past example of how leadership leads to power. It has almost been 150 years since the Great Civil War was fought in the United States, and in this bloody battle, which killed more than 600,000 soldiers, Abraham Lincoln emerged as a statesman who preserved the Union and abolished slavery. Lincoln's generosity and kind-heartedness are legendary. With these traits, he changed the hearts of many of his political enemies, and some of whom who eventually helped him elected to the presidency. His presidency faced some of the biggest crises the U.S. has ever seen, and through the leadership of the country was able to stay united during delicate circumstances. He achieved seemingly impossible feats in his 4 years of presidency. During the beginning of the Civil War, the Northern soldiers believed they were fighting to free the Union for liberty. In the last few months of the war, the soldiers now believed they were fighting for liberty and to free the slaves. But if anyone said that in the beginning, the soldiers would have stated, "No way, we're fighting to free the Negroes." This transformation took place because Lincoln was able to turn the soldiers' beliefs into higher morality by gaining their trust, loyalty, and respect. He was able to do this by simply being himself. It was common to see tall, lengthy men with the tall stovepipe hat in the army camps, or visiting with soldiers at the White House, and in the hospitals with wounded soldiers. As the most activist president in history, Lincoln transformed the president's role as commander-in-chief and as chief executive into a powerful new position, making the president supreme over both Congress and the courts.
Is a prime example of why leadership leads to power. The definition of leader effectiveness highlights the development of mutual trust, respect, and obligation in leader-member dyads. Lincoln has been noted to have redefined what it meant to be president. With a strong ability to relate to people, Lincoln had the ability to decide between the most urgent and most prominent issues. Abraham Lincoln's leadership style exactly outlines what is defined as an effective leader. He developed mutual trust between him and the people he served as president. He earned their respect, and he was able to get the job done as an effective leader.
Power and leadership are two concepts that go hand in hand. Great leaders develop power through mutual trust and respect, as seen in the Abraham Lincoln case. Abraham Lincoln was put into one of the most powerful organizational positions anyone could have in the world due to his natural personal leadership skills. The poor leadership shown in the Enron case is a prime example of how a person in a position of organizational power is able to lead a whole corporation to its downfall. The leadership in Enron were corrupt, unethical, and untrustworthy. Even with the organizational power given them, their poor leadership led to a catastrophic event which put many in prison or left them with nothing to their name. Great leadership will lead to individuals being given power due to respect and trust between the leader and the people below them. An individual given power in an organization will not always make the best leader, and without proper ethics and trust may lead a company to its downfall. The organization a great leader is a part of trusts them to make the right moral, ethical, and financial decisions which will lead them to, as a whole, to personal and organizational success.